guys, it's Ilana. Welcome back to my channel. So we're going to talk about something that has just recently popped up on TikTok, and that is the alt bop house. So content houses started to become more of a common thing during like the Jake Paul days when he developed like what was it, Team 10, and then they became even bigger when the pandemic kicked off, when we had the Hype House, the Sway House. There were a bunch of other houses that were involved, and a bunch of creators would like go into this big mansion and create content together and make money. Then a lot of OnlyFans creators decided to team up together to create their own version of content houses and called them bop houses. So the term bop is coined by like Gen Alpha and Gen Z, where it typically means like a hoe or typically a sex worker. To me, the millennial, a bop means a good music hit, but the kids these days don't see it that way anymore. And so there are like two really well-known bop house groups on TikTok called the Bop House itself and then the Smash Pack. Why do I know this? Unfortunately, I am sadly chronically online, but here we are, we're talking about it. So now there is a new bop house that has come out, and it is the alt bop house, and it has stirred up quite some controversy, especially within the alt community. But what I can say from all these young bop houses that have been created, mostly do contain of women who are from 18 to 22 years old, so really young, and have a really young audience, which is really wrong. And we're gonna dive into that as well. I want to start off by saying that I obviously do not have anything against OnlyFans creators. I am not going to be shaming OnlyFans creators. I will be criticizing something that the alt bop house is doing, but I will not be shaming them as sex workers. I have a little bit of empathy for sex workers because back during the pandemic, when I desperately needed money after getting laid off from 2 jobs, and while I was looking for jobs, I did have an OnlyFans for a few months, and I didn't make that much money off of it, but it did help for a little bit. And then once I was fully employed, within the first few months of my job, I did get rid of it because I felt like it served its purpose. But yes, I was an OnlyFans girl for a little bit during the pandemic. I obviously have not done that in years. I don't plan on going back. I have no regrets, but I can empathize as I fully support sex work 100%. You have to do what you have to do to make an income. Some people are also forced into the industry as well. Some people do make that choice, but some people also don't get to make that choice. And I just want to share that message with you guys really quick before we get into this. We gotta talk about, well, who is the bop house, who is the alt bop house, what are they? Basically it just consists of these girls named Nikki Bites, Maya Rodriguez, Meg Kraus, there's some girl named Sonny, there's a girl named Yamina Amin, a girl named Lems, and Charlie Gray. I had to look up these names because I don't care that much, but at least we can at least say like, okay, these are the people who are part of it. I want to talk about the biggest issue that has sparked within the alt bop house and why it's really pissed off the alt community. And that is because the sex work industry is against alt values. And I think there's a lot of confusion between sex workers in general, like supporting sex workers and supporting sex work. I believe that, a lot of people in the alt community are not anti-sex worker. As I stated earlier, sometimes you have to do what you have to do to make ends meet. A lot of sex workers do date back in history that do derive from a lot of alt subcultures. And there is a little bit of intertwining that is a part of it, right? And there is a difference, as I said, by supporting sex workers and then supporting the industry in itself. The industry is very exploitive and bad, but all people should be supporting sex workers. And I think that's where there's a lot of confusion within the anger that stemmed up from this whole controversy to begin with. A lot of people say, well, the whole sex industry and supporting the sex work industry is against alt values, which I can absolutely agree with you on. Sometimes all people may not necessarily have a choice, and maybe they do have to go into that industry. I don't think sex workers themselves support the industry. They're just doing it for the paycheck because, again, they need that income, or again, they were pushed into it. And we know that the industry is very exploitive, and we know that it is setting feminism back. But I would say it is very anti-alt to be anti-sex worker. And I think that is where there's a lot of confusion. And I think a lot of people in the alt community are saying that maybe they just hate sex workers overall, which I don't really like the shaming of sex workers, because that to me again feels very anti-alt and feels a little bit kind of conservative in my opinion. I don't really care for that kind of criticism. There's also another controversy with how the alt girls are marketing themselves, and that I think is another big issue that we are going to dive into a little bit later. There are many alt folks who are sex workers who don't capitalize off their alt aesthetic and or just being alt in general. And that is a big issue that we're talking about, and I think that's what a lot of people in the alt community have a huge issue with, and that I can side with them on. And I think that's where I find some criticism with this as well. But again, for me personally, I have no issues with OnlyFans creators. I have no issues if there are alt people who want to become OnlyFans creators, as long as they are not marketing themselves as like an alt OnlyFans creator and making it their whole entire personality. That I think is a little bit different. And we also need to remember who like sets the system up in the first place, right? And I just want to end this topic really quick because there was one comment that I saw on a video like criticizing the alt bop house, and I feel like this comment just really sums up things very well. So no one is saying that sex work is bad. It's nothing someone should be shamed for. The problem is that some people want to be alternative and not be sexualized. When y'all create stuff like this, it's not helping. That's fine if it's your style. But you literally named it alt bop house, kind of dragging the whole community into this. I'm already tired of trying to look up alt in goth style, and it's just corn. Which, again, I think is a great way to kind of go into the next topic where we're going to talk about like being sexualized. So the next piece of criticism that the alt bop house is receiving is that a lot of people are believing that they're fetishizing the alt community, which I can kind of agree with them on in some ways for sure. Because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of alt women especially get fetishized all the time. There are so many men out there who like want like some sort of goth girl that they can like hook up with, or they just fetishize and they sexualize. It happens more often than you think. And so I feel like when they market themselves as an alt bop house, I feel like they're really enabling that kind of behavior. That's what we don't want to happen for the alt community. We already don't like being sexualized for how we are in general. So yeah, this definitely doesn't look good, right? I saw this video on TikTok by this girl who had this really terrible experience, who was alt, and she shared her experience because she was fetishized. So I just want to share this video with you really quick.
One of the most tragic cultural consequences of this app has been the complete erasure and perversion of alternative culture and what it even means to be alternative. I've been seeing a lot of discourse on the alt bop house lately, and I'm so happy we're talking about it because it's a perfect example of how this internet perversion of alternative culture, first of all, is irreversible, and second of all, ties into sexual violence. The alt bop house and the content they create and just their existence shows just how far the fetishization of alternative women has gone on this app. And that's always been true. I am fully aware that that's always been a dangerous part of being an alternative woman even before this app existed. But also the watering down of what it means to be alternative has made this a huge threat to so many more women. Like, if you look at the alt bop house and you look at those women and you're like, oh yeah, those are alt girls, you probably were only introduced to alternative subculture through social media like 2020, 2019 TikTok, because they literally just have different colored hair and piercings. This app has created this watered down, palatable version of alternative that is enjoyable and manageable to men, especially non-alternative men, and thus can be fetishized. And that's very dangerous to other women, and I have been a victim of this. As someone who has actually like listened to hardcore my whole life, that hate breed poster is not just for show, baby. Like, I've been involved in my local scene I'm covered in tattoos. Like, I used to have a lot of face piercings, and I took them all out because I have had so many. I started to have so many sexual encounters with men where they assumed that I liked getting choked. And this sounds like a really specific niche example, but I truly believe that it speaks exactly to this. There were so many encounters where I was hooking up with a guy for the first time, and they just assumed, they just did it without asking me. And I stopped and I was like, why the fuck would you think I like that? And they were like, oh, I don't know, like your tattoos, like your piercings, I don't know, you're like edgy. How does that happen?
So I paused the video there because that was the main thing that I really wanted you to see. That really stood out to me the most. And that, really struck a nerve with me. Like the whole choking thing. Because while a lot of BDSM and kink also did stem from all subcultures, like also with harnesses, fishnets, chokers, that also came from sex work, and I know it's really common with in alt fashion. However, just because somebody is alt does not mean that they are going to be into that stuff. You cannot assume that just because somebody is edgy and they have tattoos and piercings that they are going to enjoy being choked when you are getting sexually involved with them. That is not how that works. You need to have conversations and learn about what consent is. That is so important. You never assume. Like, clearly that made her uncomfortable and very unsafe in that situation. Obviously, she is not somebody who likes to be choked. And that's just a perfect example of just alt women being fetishized by men who make these assumptions that this is what they like, just assumed on how they look and present themselves, when that is not the case. And that is just disgusting. Another issue that we also saw from the alt bop house in terms of like fetishization is if you go onto their bio, you will see that their bio caption says like the house that will like step on you. And I believe there also have been terms that they've used in their videos called like goth mommy. Before people are like, oh my god, Ilana, you're totally like victim blaming these girls. Here's the thing, these women, like, they know what they're doing. They're purposely using that, but I feel like, you're actually making the problem a lot worse when you say, we will step on you, we'll be your goth mommy. The alt community doesn't want you to say stuff like that. That's what we're calling out. We're saying, hey, don't say things like that because it hurts us. I just felt like one of the girls in the alt house, she came out with a video and basically she said a whole lot of nothing, saying like, hey, we hear you guys about the whole fetishization comments. We don't believe that we're doing this. And yeah, she said a whole lot of nothing. And I feel like these girls still really do not get the picture because a lot of them are still very young and they don't get it. So I want to go into the next thing because we talked about alt aesthetics a little bit, and I think this is a perfect segue into the next topic. The alt aesthetic doesn't automatically make you alt. Just because you wear heavy eyeliner, black lipstick, colored hair, I know I look like it right now, still doesn't make you alt. Yes, I do have that kind of aesthetic, but I also still stand by alternative values and I still listen to alternative music because just because you present alternatively in a physical form with your fashion and your makeup and your hair, that still doesn't make you alternative. And I've said this before on my YouTube video. I got a lot of criticism on that with people saying like, oh my god, Ilana, you're gatekeeping. But like, I made some good points and I still stand by everything that I said in that video. I am going to double down on that. Whether you have vivid colored hair, piercings, tats, a split tongue like one of those girls has, that still doesn't make you alt. I might think that their outfits are very cute. Elements of the things that they wear are things that I do wear. It gives very e-girl in my opinion, and sometimes I do dress kind of e-girl, but again, I still have my alternative values, which is why I'm not an e-girl. If you look at their clothes, it feels very obvious that their clothes do kind of come from Shein or some other like fast fashion companies. For me, over the past few years, I've gotten better with not buying from fast fashion, and I've gotten a lot more obsessed with thrifting and upcycling and DIYing my clothes. And that is an important value to have within the alt subculture, and I think thrifting's actually better. It's way more fun when you find an outfit that you love at the thrift store that you had no idea you would ever find. So it's always a fun surprise, right? I just don't get the impression here that these girls are thrifting and DIYing their clothes. Of course, like, I could be 100% wrong, right? All of this has created a huge conversation surrounding like their style and their aesthetic. They also made this video where they talked about how they were laughing at people calling them posers when they were like, well, you don't know our music taste, you don't know our political beliefs and our values. And to that, I have to say, well, I kind of do agree with them. I don't think it's completely fair to say that we should call them posers when we don't know what their music tastes are. We don't know what their political beliefs are. We don't know what their values are. Obviously, those are the things that truly matter when it comes to being all, depending on what subculture you're part of. I personally don't want to call these girls posers because, again, I don't know them personally. But of course, I can have my suspicions and concerns on what they have been doing in the names of the alt community. And while, yes, it is really bad that they are using the alt community to capitalize off that and to market themselves as being this alt bop house for the sex industry, and that goes against alt values. And of course, that's a problematic thing. It is only like one, if you think about it, it is just one thing. Yes, it's a very bad one thing. But what if they do listen to the music? What if their values and their beliefs and their morals and everything else is good? I know we're not all perfect. I feel like those who call them posers are acting like that they are exactly perfect. Like they follow every single so if they follow some sort of like alt rule book guide or whatever to a T. Like they are perfect. They do everything right. I don't think everyone's perfect in the alt community. I think that would be really hypocritical. So I am not going to personally call them posers. I can definitely see like the concerns and the suspicions on like why we don't want to say that they're alt. Again, we don't know these people. We don't know them. They haven't shared their music and their values and their beliefs, but I do agree. They have done one bad thing that does go against alt values, and we absolutely can call that out. And then the last point that I want to talk about is how these women just completely lack self-awareness of their audience. So it's really obvious that on TikTok that their audience who are watching their videos are young teenage girls and young teenage boys. Now, obviously, this audience cannot purchase their content on OnlyFans. You have to be 18 and older to have an OnlyFans account, and you actually do get your ID verified through the platform. So we know that they're not buying the content. They also probably don't even have the money to buy the content, let alone that. But they still have access to their TikTok pages, and it's obvious that these girls are marketing themselves as alt sex workers, and they're making their whole entire brand and personality around that. TikTok has way too many minors on the app. We all know that, right? They have an inappropriate age group that is watching their content. And what's even worse is that you can set your page to be 18 and older and plus, and the thing is, they're not doing that. There are 13-year-olds who are in the comment section saying, like, I'm 13 years old and I still have access to this. That's a huge problem. No 13-year-old should be looking at that. There are going to be girls who don't know any better, like young teenage girls who are going to look up to these alt bop house girls or just bop house girls in general, being like, I want to be like them one day. I want to be an OnlyFans creator. That looks so cool. And it's just so harmful, and it sends the wrong message to such a young audience. You have to be mindful of who your audience is when you are a creator. And it drives me crazy that the people who are defending the alt bop house in the comments literally are young people. It's children. They are not adults who are defending them in the comments. So it really all just checks out from there. Like, all the people who are defending this shit have not had their frontal lobes developed yet. My suggestion for the alt bop house is to completely rebrand and redo their marketing, because when you market yourself as an alt OnlyFans creator, you make your content centered around being alt and doing sex work, that kind of does defeat the purpose of being alt. There's a difference between separating yourself from being a sex worker while being alt and then using your alt identity to tie into your content and capitalize off the alt community. That's what the main problem is. If they separate the subculture from the sex work itself, that would be far less more of a problem. And I know other bop houses on TikTok have been getting into a lot of backlash with minors being involved, because there have also been other young target audiences who also look up to young bop houses, and there have also been alleged minors being filmed and doing collaborations with those girls, which I also find to be really inappropriate, and that's a whole nother issue for a whole nother day. But I can at least appreciate Ari from the Smash Pack, part of like another OnlyFans content creator house on TikTok. She's 22, she's self-aware of her audience, and she's like, do not do this, do not be a bop. She's happy to like answer questions about like being an OnlyFans content creator, but I've seen her make several videos saying like, do not do this. Go to college, go find a job, do something else before you do this. And I can at least appreciate that. At least that's someone who is at a young age, has that kind of self-awareness, who knows their target audience, is saying, you know, don't do it. And she also makes other content that are like funny skits as well, and she doesn't surround all of her content just like being an OnlyFans creator. So I can at least admire that. But, you know, a lot of young OnlyFans creators on TikTok are not doing that. That's what I have to say. Those are my thoughts and opinions regarding the alt bop house. I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on this? I know what I said is a lot, and I know like there can be a lot of confusion regarding like supporting sex workers and supporting sex industry. I want people to know the difference, and I want people to understand the point of this video is that it's the marketing behind using the alt community in the name of sex work that is the main issue that we're talking about here. You can still be alt and still be a sex worker, just don't do it in the name of the alt community. That's the message I want people to get across at the end of the day. So I'd love to know your thoughts. Comment down below, and if you liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!